All you got to do is be quiet and listen to the people talk. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to see and hear and be able to do what they want. It's not what you want, it's what they want. They're the ones with the house. They're the ones with the asset. You're the one trying to help them. So knowing that you're the professional, it's going to make your job a lot easier by just opening your ears.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Steven Silverman. Steven, it's kind of the silly season right now in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Eric, it is because, the market's going higher everywhere. It's active, but it makes it harder to really go in and find deals. They're still out there. You've just got to really dig for them. But we don't want our clients going into deals where it's not going to be profitable for them.
Yeah, and we have this discussion all the time with clients, past, present, future, and people will just shut down and say there's no deals. And there's no question it's been harder to find deals, but I don't care what market you're in. There's always an opportunity someplace. On the flip side, you have folks that, they hear some story that, the real estate values have just come up so much. And we had one of our agents with one of these types of clients here recently, didn't we, Stephen, where a guy just asking for a price that's telling the agent to sell it at this price. I mean, it's just it wasn't realistic.
Yeah. And you always have to price to market. You have to understand what the market is.
Yeah.
And, don't looking for that big killing. You're probably going to get killed yourself.
Putting it out there, a property on the market for 30% higher than any justifiable comp is usually a pretty challenging situation. So, the agent has to try to manage expectations. And, this is what happens in silly season. You get folks who get, the old Federal Reserve banker Greenspan used to see irrationally exuberant. And that's tough because you end up investing a lot of time in somebody who really does not have a realistic vision of what the property will sell for.
What they're doing is really searching for a greater fool, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a greater fool theory. Exactly. Finally starting to get caught up a little bit. We've had, half a dozen folks that had all come in, given us reviews at one time. If we haven't read your review yet, it's not because we don't love you. We do. The challenge is that we can only read one or two of them at a time, and there were a lot of them. And so we really appreciate those folks that have taken the time to write a review on iTunes or on Google Play Store. It's very helpful for us. We work hard at trying to get guests on the show. It's not easy. The podcast it does take a lot of time, and we invest a lot of time in trying to bring you good guests. And when you guys leave reviews, it helps our guests understand that people are listening, and it's the type of guest that perhaps could help them. And that's why most guests come on our show. They want to try to connect with our listeners. And so you guys, we really appreciate you. I just wanted to read one from December. The home mortgage guy says, subject matter is timely and insightful. Eric and Steven do more than just interview their guests. They follow up with questions and commentary that prove they are engaged and attentive. The professionalism and competence is clear. I highly recommend these episodes to anyone who currently owns or is interested in real estate investing. John Ellenbeck, Brooksville. John, love you, brother. Appreciate you taking the time and leaving us a review. Of course, I've got a relationship with John. That was my boss from a previous life. And we've had your mother.
And you slipped him a few dollars, right?
We've had your mother on here, Stephen. So, tit for tat, right? But no, John, we do appreciate you. Appreciate you taking the time. And, hopefully you'll come back to some of our other meetups that we have. And for you guys that are in the greater Tampa Bay area, every last or fourth Wednesday of every month, we have a great speaker come in and try to help folks that are connected with us through the meetup.com. Stephen, let's go ahead, unless you've got something else to roll in with our guest.
Today we have with us Frankie Herrera. Frankie has a BA in finance from the University of South Florida. He started as a project manager for Volunteers of America, Florida in 2006, where he learned building construction. Frankie furthered his career by joining Hillsborough County Fire Rescue in 2009. In 2011, he started Partners Associated in Development by Herrera, LLC, where his team has bought, rehabbed, rented, and sold over 300 properties. In 2016, he opened up Real West Florida, LLC, a boutique real estate brokerage. In 2017, he opened up Versant Management Group, a property management group which manages for local investors. Frankie, welcome to the Invest Florida show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Frankie, really appreciate the time that you're investing with us today. Stephen gives us a little bit of a background on what you did before you got into real estate and sort of the chronology of how you got to where you are. Why don't you give us back up a little bit and give us a 30,000 foot view of like what was the catalyst to get you into real estate and how did that evolve?
So, I come from a family where half of my family is blue collar worker. They're out there working with their hands, paycheck to paycheck. And I have the other half of my family who is white collar, CPA, doctors, lawyers. And me being in the middle, it really was a struggle trying to figure out the path of where I wanted to take. But one thing always resonated with what I wanted to do, and that was real estate. So at a 30,000 foot view looking in, I couldn't pinpoint as to which direction I wanted my life to go. But in talking to a lot of successful people within my family and whatnot, I was able to come always back down to one simple fact, and that was to go to school and get an education. And through doing that, I was actually able to finite my path. And that was ultimately to be successful and make money. So getting into the University of South Florida allowed me to jump into Volunteers of America, where I started to pick up and hone my skills in the finance. And that, in turn, helped me learn the building construction side with a very with success. I was the only project manager for the whole state of Florida, and my ability to understand the numbers allowed them to be very successful at starting ground up projects. We're talking about from acquiring the land to developing it with the different municipalities to bringing it to fruition. And the good thing about Volunteers of America is it was not for profit. So we're working with the Veterans Association, Section 8 housing, Section 2 housing for elderly. So I really got to see some very big projects and work with millions of dollars at a time. But ultimately, I knew that was definitely not going to be, where I would stop. Being a not-for-profit, obviously, you're not making a lot of money. And then, unfortunately, that's when the market crashed, when I started getting excited over all that.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to get into the fire department, where my father and uncles and cousins, they all are. And I've been a firefighter for 10 years, firefighter paramedic here for Hillsborough County Fire Rescue. I love doing that job. And it really helps you value life, which I think has, in turn, helped me really appreciate real estate And I always preach this to everybody who I work with. If you're doing a deal and you can't put your head on a pillow at the end of the night and sleep without batting an eye, don't do that deal. Because that's how we are at the fire department. We're there on the person's worst day, and we're there to make it better. And that's how I look at real estate. We're there on that person's most confusing, most uncertain day, and we need to be that person who's going to guide them in the right direction. And that in turn has made me successful. And I'm very happy to say that out of all the deals I've ever done, I've only lost on one home. And on that home, it was only a couple $100 that we lost. Mm-hmm. So I know I got a lot of good people looking out for me upstairs, but that's how I live my life, and I teach everybody else to live their life by as well.
Good advice.
So Frankie, just so I understand, so what you're really saying is you go to prospects with a solution to help.
Absolutely. Not to per se that I have a solution to everything, but what I have become very good at, and the people who work with me is we listen. We know how to listen, and we're never right. The only thing we could ever do is help you make the right choice. So
you're focusing on single family homes. Is that correct?
Single family homes are the bulk of our business. The norm of what's out there in middle America, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $200,000 homes. Those are mostly what we're coming in contact with. Not to say that we don't do anything else. We are open to everything, but that is typically what's coming into our wheelhouse.
So are you primarily fix and flip, you're buy and hold, or what's your strategy right now, Frankie?
So we don't particularly lay our hat on one specific type of situation. We like to focus on everything. We look at the numbers from that 30,000 foot point of view, like you were saying earlier, and we make a decision based on what's going to be the best for the company and everybody here that works for us. So if we bought it at a very good price and the numbers are going to make sense to rehab, that's the road that we're going to go down. If it has some good tenants that we acquired in and they're just misunderstood, then that house is going to be a rental property for us. And another thing that that brings up a good point is when we rehab, we're paying very close attention to what the comparables are doing. We're not going in to a specific market area like Tampa, Florida, Carrollwood, for example. And we're not going to rehab it to the level of Avila. We're going to rehab it to the level of the Tampa, Florida, Carrollwood market that's going for. Mm-hmm. So that way we don't get in trouble. We're not overinflating the area. We're matching the clientele that wants to be there.
What is a general formula that you use to determine whether a deal is a good deal or not?
That's the $1 million question. Right. I think everybody wants to know that answer. But ultimately, it's got to make sense. We just recently purchased a house over in Largo. We actually purchased it from a retired New York City fireman, and built a good relationship with the gentleman. And that house was in a very interesting part of town. The comparables were telling us one thing. They were very high. However, the area was not as good as what we felt the comparables were. But ultimately, the numbers are the numbers. They don't lie. So I can't per se that it's a specific formula. For us, it's got to be a combination of what the numbers are saying and what you're feeling. If you've got enough feeling in you, or enough experience, because at the end of the day, it's not always the numbers. It's a mix of both.
Are you using, I mean, because obviously we, as real estate folks, that time is of the essence. And there's, on any given day you could spend, if you're really peeling back the onion, all day long just looking at deals. Is there sort of one or two formulas that you use to say, okay, I need to spend a little bit more time on this? For example, I mean, I was looking at a deal over the weekend and you could get $1,000 a month of rent off of it. And it was $100,000. So it's 1% of rent. Which it seemed like a pretty good deal. So it's something that I want to spend time on, as opposed to you see these deals that you're able to get $1,700 or $1,800 a month rent. And it's a $300,000 ask price. I'm probably not going to spend much time on that. Do you have some sort of similar like initial criteria that you look at to determine whether a deal is worth investing more time in?
So again, I don't have a specific number or formula that I go off of, more so of does it make sense? We just bought a house here in Carrollwood for $100,000, and we were thinking of maybe putting 20 to 30 into it. That's when you first look at it, but then when you actually get in there and your contractors start ripping stuff out, and it's a wood frame home or it has a crawl space, you didn't necessarily see the termite damage. So that's, I hate to put artificial numbers, if we want to call it that, artificial, because like you say, peeling back the onion, you never know what you're going to get when you actually get in there. So I can't per se for anybody to use numbers. I actually am a big believer of actually going out and physically seeing it and peeling back those layers and getting involved. Last year when I got a little more detached and we were focused on volume, last year we purchased and sold 72 homes. That was volume. And I got away from actually going to the properties. So that right there, we risked volume for the sake of profit. I'm going back to, paying attention to these properties a lot better, because you're risking profit.
So
you're risking profit at that point.
So, the supply line is always an issue. And we spoke before and you said you go to people and you have a solution, which means that the people that you're talking to have a problem. How do you find the sellers that have a problem where you can offer a solution? Do you go through MLS? Do you do postcards? Or how do you find the people that you can help and reach a mutually beneficial arrangement?
So when I first started, I was doing this on my own. I was making over 30 plus offers on the MLS, getting beat out by people who were buying cash or buying at the steps of the courthouse and whatnot. In 2014, we bought into a franchise. It's called Homevestors. We buy ugly houses. Through that type of marketing that we do with Homevestors, we're doing mass mail marketing. We're on the TV, on the billboards, pay-per-click, on a very large schedule. We have over 34 franchisees here locally, which allows us to pool our money together and really be that 100-pound gorilla in the room. So when somebody gets our ad, our piece of mail, they see our billboards, they see our TV advertising, they're responding to an ad that says, "We buy ugly houses." So there's already a premonition there that, hey, maybe my house isn't ugly, but I'm faced with an ugly situation. So when they call and we have that understanding of, hey, we understand your house might not be ugly, but you're dealing with an ugly situation, let's set an appointment for us to go out and talk. And 9 times out of 10 when we're there, we're typically able to help them with a solution. And hopefully that solution is for us to buy their home.
Mm-hmm. You did 72 homes last year. How many of those were brokered, traditional, owner-occupied, and how many of them were part of your investment strategy of either buy and hold or flip?
The truth, The truth is they were all through home investors.
Okay.
What I find, this year we're doing more of going out and looking, combing through the MLS and doing more word of mouth. And what we find is that when we're actually able to, the realtors out there on the MLS almost put up they're the middlemen, kind of like when you go buy a car. Anybody who's in sales knows that when you got to go through that middleman, they're a filter. They're a big giant filter, and whenever that filter gets in the way, you're not getting the raw emotion out there, and that's what really allows us to be successful. Is we're listening, and that's what allows us to be successful in RealVest, which is our real estate brokerage, because I teach my realtors how we buy houses through home investors. Is listen. All you got to do is be quiet and listen to the people talk. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to see and hear and be able to do what they want. It's not what you want. It's what they want. They're the ones with the house. They're the ones with the asset. You're the one trying to help them. So knowing that you're the professional, it's going to make your job a lot easier by just opening your ears.
Yeah, listening is a challenging skill, brother.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. You made me smile because I've heard people call realtors a lot of things, but I'm just going to tell Eric now he's just a big filter.
It is. We're all filters. We're all filters. It's tough, but I was the other day with my younger cousin who's buying a car, and I'm watching the salesman go back and forth from us to the sales manager, and I'm like, man, if I could only just tell this guy to go on break and let me go talk to the sales manager, this would be over real quick.
Yeah, well, that's a game also that they keep playing. Yeah. He's always the good guy. The sales manager's the bad guy.
Yeah,
absolutely. But we take all that out. I mean, there's no reason. And with the fire department, I see it. Life is too short. Every day we wake up, we're blessed to go out there and do what we do. So I really, at all costs, try to just cut out the fluff and say, hey, how can I help you today?
So is that what you do? You go in with kind of an open mind and then you'll make a decision.
Absolutely.
This is going to be a flip.
Absolutely.
Or we're going to broker.
We use the word no agenda. Having that phrase, no agenda, has let our business flourish 10 times over. Not be trapped in by the formula or this is what you have to do. Every employee that works here with us, we're small. I have my wife, we have a coordinator, a salesman, and a buyer. Mm-hmm. And I basically supervise, manage, and handle the day-to-day operations. And they reign free. Just as long as we're doing what we got to do, they're listening and they're helping, everything's going to be all right.
Talk to me about capital. Real estate's a big boy game. And even the biggest investors on the planet need to be able to acquire capital from other people to be able to move their business along if they find more deals than they have capital available at the moment. What are you guys doing about capital partners? Is it all friends and family money? Maybe it's just personal money, or are you going out and acquiring investors to invest shoulder to shoulder with you?
So I've been very fortunate. We started this LLC back in 2011. My wife is an accountant by trade. She's got her master's in accounting, and she was working for the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation back in the day, and other accountant CPA firms prior to that. So looking at what the success that my family's had, I've always attributed it to one thing. They've always had very clean, very strong financials. So I knew from the beginning of my business, no matter how small I was, I always had to have very clean, understandable books. So anybody can just pick them up and say, okay, this is a good, solid business to invest in. So with that, my wife has been able to really paint a good picture along the help with our CPAs. So we're able to go to the small banks and get very good sized lines of credit. I can't tell you how important that is. We leverage a lot the line of credits, our own money that we've been able to generate through real estate, through our property management company, which manages our rentals. But we leverage it all. We leverage it all because you're right. It is a big boy game that requires a lot of capital. It burns a lot of cash. You can never have enough cash. And now to the point that we're where we're at, I can't keep this phone from ringing on people who are wanting to partner with us that have money.
So, Frankie, talk to me about the line of credit. Is it a local bank? It's a national bank, a regional bank? How did that come about?
So, local community banks were the best fit for us because we're a small business ourselves. So, having a set of books to where a local community bank understands and is able to come in and read that book, your books, and understand and have the same thought process as you do is really important. The bigger banks, I've learned, have a lot of restraints and restrictions, red tape that a community bank processor just can cut right through. They're able to go sometimes to the owner of the bank, or they have a better relationship with the finance committee. So at the end of the day, they're really able to form that bond. And I've been able to very happily say that the first people that we've gone to have been the ones that have really stuck and been able to continue to build our lines over the years. So we've got a good set of community banks that have just been able to help us grow.
And when you work with the banks, do they work kind of on a line of credit, or do you have to each time take them a property to show them?
So I've been fortunate. We've been able to do lines to where they base it off of the company's books, off of our cash flow. There's been one bank who did unsecured line, which was very, very nice. Another company was able to do, what did they do? They secured some of our properties that we had free. So it really just depends the model of what that bank is really good at doing. And just like buying the houses, again, you got to listen and try to find where you're going to fit in to their model. And it's not all going to be just one all-inclusive package, which, trust me, I've tried. Not one bank has been able to do that yet, which I really wish they can.
And when you speak to banks, do you find that a lot of banks are not comfortable lending to investors? They find lending to owners, but they worry about investments, and the loans are maybe short.
Absolutely. It is very tough, and I have yet to put my finger on it. I'm very fortunate that with the Homevestors community being a nationwide brand, they do bring a lot of support and a lot of awareness of what it is that the investor needs. So being part of that group has really helped us extend our reach a little further. But there's a lot of smart people out there, not only in the real estate world, who are able to help us penetrate these smaller banks or even a larger bank. It really just depends what you're out there looking for.
Tell me about the market right now. What's going on in the market? And you guys are primarily in the Tampa Bay area, correct?
I wish.
Okay.
I wish we were only in Tampa. It would make my drive time so much less.
Okay.
But we're actually in 8 counties.
8? Okay,
we're
wow.
from Sarasota down, Citrus Park down to Tampa. Or not Citrus Park, I'm sorry, Citrus County down to Tampa. And as far as the border of Orlando, so Polk County, Kissimmee. So we're everywhere.
Wow.
9 counties total
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of different activity, a lot of different markets. Where do you think that? Where's a market that a sub market that you look at and going, man, I wish I could find more in here because it seems like the value's a little better. And what markets are you in? And going, it's getting harder and harder to find stuff here.
It's really interesting because every market does have its own subset of what's going on there. And just when there's one market that I have figured out, it totally blows me away. So what we do we have to do a lot of testing, which is we'll buy a property and we'll throw it out there wholesale to see how the investors are doing over in that area. We have one in Clearwater right now that we started, I think it was around $130,000. ARV is around 150, and it's in perfect condition for a renter, for somebody to come pick up as a rental. We're down to 119 right now.
Hey,
Nobody has wanted to touch it.
Oh, you started at
Clearwater.
The after repair value is 150, and you've been marking it down to 119
from 130.
From 130.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And that's in Clearwater, off of a great street in front of a brand new fire station, good area. Couldn't tell you why it hasn't been sold, but we do things like that to understand what's going on in some areas, or in an area that we don't per se have a lot of investors, because we know once we're going to buy one house, typically there's 2 or 3 that are going to follow in that area. Mm-hmm. And we want to be ready. We want to be ready to help, because there's not only an investor, that house could also fit for first-time home buyer that, might have the handy husband or a handy woman who's looking to, make it their little project and then have enough equity to, in turn, sell it one day for a profit. So it's really hard. It's really hard to read the market and what's going on right now. But I do notice it's like a wave, and we're fortunate enough to be on one of the coasts. So the wave usually comes from California over to us, or from us over to California, but typically it comes from California over to us, which gives us some time to react. We've been able to see over in California, not per se things that are, I'd say, at a halt or slowing, but I'd say that they're coming back to normal, from what I hear is happening over there. And just when our properties are sitting for a long time over here, we get a house that we put up on a Friday and it goes under contract on a Saturday. So I've given up on trends, and I just go with pricing them right.
Gotcha. Talk to me about newbies. What newbie comes into the market? What would you say? I mean, you've got a lot of experience, more than 10 years now of experience in this business. What would you say to the newbie that's coming in right now that you wish that you knew before you got started?
The newbie needs to pay attention and listen to absolutely everything that's out there as far as, what these houses are doing. I wouldn't per se get yourselves as a first home to go into an area that doesn't have a lot going on as far as sales go, or an area that has a lot of active. I'd try to stay in a relatively safe place, and don't shoot for that grand slam or that home run on your first deal. Start hitting singles. Singles eventually turn into doubles, triples, and then your home runs come. So stay small and focus on one thing at a time when you're getting new, because you don't know what's going to happen to this market, and you want to be around for the long haul.
So one of the things you mentioned before was you're very careful of the amount that you will improve a property. Is that a mistake that you think newbies have to be aware of?
Absolutely. A lot of people get wrapped up into the home as if they were going to live it. That's I can't tell you how important that is. You're never going to live there. This is going to be a property that you're going to sell, and there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to find with that house that you're not going to like. And it's not your job to change that, because what you're changing and what your taste is is completely different than what the market dictates or what the people are looking for in that area. You can't go into St. Pete and to where off of 4th Street where they have a bunch of little bungalows, or Seminole Heights where they have little bungalows, and turn that into a concrete block or stucco home. That's not what they're looking for. The people that are in that area are looking for a little bungalow with a cottage style porch. You got to stick to what's there. So, and don't over improve it.
So, as we start to wind down now, how can people reach you, and if they have some deals or want to talk to you about projects?
Absolutely. They can reach me directly at 813-944-3908 or directly at 813-966-9734. I'm open. Anybody can call me anytime. That's my office and my direct cell phone. They have questions about deals, about the area, how things are going. If they're looking for a house, they're investing in a certain area, they need help with property management, they need help with retail real estate or investments, I'm an open book. I don't turn anybody away.
And what are you looking for right now, Frankie? Like what would be the first telephone call you'd answer if somebody's bringing you a deal? What are you looking for?
I don't turn anything down, just as long as the numbers make sense. When I say the numbers make sense, everybody over here in my office is hungry. Everybody's got to eat. So bring us what you got, and we'll reevaluate it, and hopefully we can partner up and see what the future beholds.
Awesome. Steven, anything else before we let Frankie go?
Frankie, thank you very much. And we look forward to some of our people contacting you and hopefully doing some deals.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Frankie. And that was Frankie Herrera. Steven, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it's very interesting that, people, when they do business, they're always selling, but he takes the opposite approach. He's out there to listen. His strategy is to get in front of the investors and then listen and then provide them with a solution. So he's helping them along the way. And let's face it, Eric, not enough people listen. Everybody wants to talk. Yeah,
it's a hard skill. There's no doubt about it. And we've all been in front of a salesperson that just keeps talking and over the top of you and not listening to what you're saying. And usually those conversations with me end pretty quickly. And it's an interesting strategy. He really doesn't go in. He's just trying to figure out what the person's problem is and trying to come up with a solution for that, whatever issue is going on in their life at that time. The other thing I thought was interesting, and we see this happen frequently, Steve and I fish quite a bit, and we have something that we refer to as match the hatch. That essentially means when sardines are running and you can see the snook hitting sardines, don't try to throw them frozen bait, and vice versa. Like right now, the temperature is pretty cold and fish don't move very fast, so they're not very particularly excited about hitting sardines, and they will move on frozen bait. But just match the hatch, figure out what is going on in the hatchery, and try to match it. And this is the same what he talked about with investments. If you're pay close attention to what style of house is in the community and what's selling, because people tend to be attracted to those communities because of a particular reason, like the porches. That's very typical in Seminole Heights. And if you come with a 3-2 ranch style home, people sort of turn their noses up because people going to Seminole Heights, they're specifically looking for porch bungalow style. So we've seen this happen before, but also on the investment side, people will try to, they'll see a good deal and it's vacant or it's got a high vacancy rate and they don't understand why. And it's just too good of a deal to pass up. But then you realize that it's really not a great neighborhood for the concept of real estate that's there. So I thought that was a good point that he made. Steven, we've had a lot of great guests over the years. Where can folks get more information on our past guests?
Well, the place to go is our website, www.investfloridashow.com. But even better is to download the apps and listen while you're mobile or in the gym.
Awesome, guys. As always, we appreciate the time that you invest with us each and every episode. And until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Steven Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.